Fantastic. So, Tanya, I've been waiting for this one big time, especially since we were talking about offline about the Shaolin Temple. That's what we were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about.
Yep.
I have for well, one, thank you for being on, and two, that's a crazy story that you said. Oh, we're going to talk about it. So, I got it. We're just going to jump right into it. How the hell did you study kung fu at a Shaolin Temple? Or whatever?
The way everyone normally does.
Yeah.
Gosh, let's see the most efficient yet still interesting way to tell this story. I, you know, I have a long story of twists and turns in my life, and starting from working in healthcare, and my background was in clinical research and immunology, and working really hard, turning into that workaholic to secure a future. I actually grew up extremely poor and in homeless shelters as a child. And so by the time that I hit career age, I took it very seriously, kind of a matter of life and death. Like, I have to create this future. I have to create this life, and everything else can wait. Enjoyment of life can wait. I have to focus on work. I have to get it done, because one day, someday in the future, it's all going to be good, and I'm going to arrive, and that's when I'll relax, and that's when I'll enjoy life, because everything will be okay, right? And so I worked, and I didn't do anything else. I came home, and my husband and I would have this crazy list. And when I say crazy list, I know some people think, oh, I have a big to-do list.
Yeah.
My to-do list was so crazy that I had bathroom breaks scheduled in, because it had to be on time. And I'm telling you guys, my bathroom breaks were like 3 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was so ridiculous. And so my poor husband, I mean, he put up with it. And so it was all about maximizing our time, maximizing how much we could get done as quickly as possible for this magical day when I could, relax. And so on my 25th birthday, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma. And that was definitely not a birthday gift I was expecting. And the prognosis was 3 to 6 months. And so 4 months later, he passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And that was a huge, huge wake up call. That was the realization that there was no someday. Someday doesn't exist. And that regret that set in of all those nights that we went and followed my list, as opposed to maybe spending time together,
Right.
as maybe opposed to going for that walk, spending that time together, because there was this someday that I was reaching for. And that was when I really started to hold on and embrace the mantra that someday is today. It's right now. And the other thing that people hear me say a lot is, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There is no someday. So if you don't plan it, if you don't make it real, if you don't put it on a date, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it doesn't exist. So with that said, I went through many twists and turns with that kind of experience, and had, my first trip to Europe, which was very eye-opening for the poor girl from LA, just going, wow, I'm in Europe, and having this whole experience. And that pushed me and inspired me to really just say yes to things, to just not say I can't do it, instead go, well, how can I do it? How can I make it happen? It doesn't seem accessible, so how can I make it accessible? And so I took lots of leaps. I started working in music. I started working on, I worked in like hip hop and indie music. And then I ended up working in CPG, which is consumer packaged goods. So I started doing work with like Whole Foods and getting all those products on the shelves there, and natural products. And then from there, started working in production, and just saying yes all the way till I was working with a company, C-suite, with a former NBA basketball player. We were doing a physical education for charter schools and things like that for kids. And so with all that, one of my artists that I worked with had a tour in China. So I'm coming back to the story here, right?
Coming
like,
back.
Where did she go? She's like, where did she go?
So around.
And trust me, there's a longer version than this, guys, but this is the quickest one I can get to. So he had a tour in China, and he kept trying to convince me to go out. He's homesick. He's like, come visit me in China. I've been living in Shanghai. And I traveled a lot by that time. This is many years past, from my initial first European visit, and I had made travel part of my life. But at the time, China was very low on my wish list. And so I just wasn't making a lot of effort. I was like, look, like I'm not into big cities. Shanghai was never my thing. And if I went out to China, it would probably be just to see the Great Wall and the Shaolin Temple.
Right.
And I thought the Shaolin Temple was cool for two reasons. So people are like, oh, she must have been a Kung Fu enthusiast. Oh, contraire. There was two things. One, I did love the concept of monks. I love the idea of like temple life and all that, just that simple living, letting it all go, discovering yourself. I thought it was such a beautiful idea. And I had seen a performance of the actual Shaolin monks. And they were all the way from kids to older people, and they were just showing actual Kung Fu skills. So it wasn't Kung Fu movies, it wasn't Kung Fu magic, right. It was just what they did. And so you're watching them, in person, landing on swords, right? Like there's no magic cameras here. Like they're really doing that. They're really, I mean, just twisting in air an amount of time that just didn't seem humanly possible. And it was just so fascinating to me, the command of their own body, the command of their, just what they could just do. And it was just and all the way to the young kids. I mean, just mind blowing. So that I thought was fascinating. And then the second one, full transparency, guys, I liked Wu-Tang. And so Shaolin was something that I worked in hip hop. I'd been on stage with Wu-Tang. Like, I was like, yeah, Shaolin, of course. So, so I wanted to see Shaolin Temple. So as months went by and my client and now friend, is convincing me to try to go out there for different reasons, luring me out there, like maybe this. And I was like, no. So one day he says, Tanya, I found a thing that foreigners, and not just foreigners, but women, because that is actually a stipulation, guys, can train Kung Fu at the Shaolin Temple. I was like, shut up. That's crazy. So I was like, that's so cool. But honestly, at that point, it was just intriguing. It was like, well, isn't that a neat fact? Like, good for that to exist. And so
good for you.
Yeah, good for someone who's going to do something wild like that. Right. I mean, it's neat, but who's going to do that? Who's going to just, leave to China and do Kung Fu? That would be weird. So, working with my company and chatting with the CEO, who was also my mentor at the time, I kind of mentioned that, on one of our late nights over some scotch, like, hey, the artist I work with, he's been trying to get me to go on the Shaolin thing. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, yeah, right. He's like, yeah. He's like, you should do something like that. I was like, right. Yeah, of course. Everyone should do something like that. And he's like, no, really, you should do something like that. He's like, the business is in a good place. We're in a good position. If you're going to do something like that, maybe now's the time. I was like, you're crazy. Like, this is nuts. Like, so the conversation ends. I go on and I'm like, it starts, now the bug is in the head. Right now you're like, what would I do? Well, how would that work? I have my house. I have this car. What I need to do? Well, so fast forward, guys. I put all my stuff in storage. I sold the rest of what I owned. I announced to my very surprised friends that I was going to leave to China to study Kung Fu. None of which, they were like, were you into Kung Fu? Do you like, they're like, we've never known this about you. I was like, no, just gonna go live in a temple, guys. And that's what I did. So I left in January of 2014. I left with a couple suitcases and showed up in China, visited my friend in Shanghai. And then after that, left on a tiny little plane to a town. From that town, had to get a 2-hour taxi to another town. And from that town, had to take a 30-minute bus ride to be greeted at the front walls of something similar, only in concept, to Disneyland. And what I mean by that is that Disneyland has these walls around, and then inside it's like its own little world. Mm-hmm. That's what the Shaolin Temple's like. So it's not like you just walk up to the doors and you're like, oh, here's the Shaolin Temple. Yeah. You walk in and there's this huge wall and kind of a big grand entrance type thing. And once you're in there, it's about another 1.5 miles, 2 miles till you actually get into the center. After walking past several trees and several other very interesting buildings, till you get to what we see as the Shaolin Temple. Uh-huh. And so I arrived at night. So it was very I had no idea really where I was, what was happening. Yeah, I arrived at night, got into this tiny little space, and met some of my counterparts who I was training with, and that was it, because it was
This
already
is
lights
wild.
out. It was lights out. So I woke up the next morning to be told that we would be practicing Tai Chi at 5 a.m. in the temple grounds. And so my first day was walking into the actual, not just the walls of the Shaolin Temple compound, but the actual walls of the actual Shaolin Temple, and standing where hundreds, if not thousands of years of monks have stood and trained Tai Chi there.
Wow.
That was my first day.
That's crazy. So what was a typical day like? Or like, take me to that first day. I got to know the first day. I'm into stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the first day was, was interesting. I think I might have arrived on a Friday, and so later what I found out was that Fridays were were the days that we ran up to a little past Bodhidharma Cave. So the Bodhidharma Cave is where essentially Zen Buddhism is said to have been born. It was a cave where Bodhidharma studied or Zen out for 9 years, right? No eating, no anything, just 9 years in the cave. And so Zen Buddhism was said to be born there. It was about 1,200 steps or 12, something, I think more than that, up a very steep hill that we had to run up and down 6 times on a Friday.
Yeah.
And so that was our training. Our training on Fridays was just that. And we're foreigners. We're the only, non-Chinese people there. And there's also, active training monks. And so you're booking it up there, trying to like run up these stairs. And I kid you not, there's like 6-year-olds who are just kicking your butt. Like they're just running up. They're like, this is my 10th time today, lady. And so that was Friday. And really that was Friday. And then it was a holiday. So we took a 9-hour hike up to another temple that was off in some cliff somewhere that was within our compound, as one does.
On holiday.
So on holiday, So that was my first days. But a typical day was to wake up I was a person who used to get up at 9 a.m. And that was like, that was a big win for me at the time. 7 was like, wow.
Whoa.
So I came into now adapting as a person who was waking up at 4 a.m. and going into meditation at 5. And then from, I think that was 5 to 5:30. And then after that, we would do Tai Chi. And so our Tai Chi was typically, I think, an hour, so 5:30 to 6:30. And then we had, I want to say maybe a half an hour. I don't know. I have to think about it, because we change our schedule depending on the season, right? So then from there was breakfast. After breakfast, then you had about a half an hour, I think, to kind of just
what'd you eat for breakfast?
Get ready.
Like, what was the food?
Breakfast, what was our breakfast? Our breakfast was, oh gosh, that's a good question. Okay, this is why I don't know. So for me, I was like the Whole Foods girl, right? So I was really nervous about everything. I'll eat all kinds of food, guys. Like, so I wasn't picky like that, but I was like, I gotta have organic. And so for a while, I had like my care packages where I would make my special little like oatmeal mix with different grains and yada yada. But once I ran out of that, it was really just hard-boiled eggs and some bread. And I think that was really about it. Like hard-boiled eggs was the main thing. I'm trying to think like what else. It was really that. So when the Shaolin Temple, when it was winter time, right, there's no heating. So we actually had to be in another temple. So that first temple I was at, typical breakfast was hard-boiled eggs, this very, very white, spongy kind of bread, kind of like a dumpling, but not exactly.
Okay.
And like a powdered soy milk, right? It wasn't like breakfast of champions, okay? No. But that was about it. That and some green tea. So when we moved to the actual temple, things were actually much more, I would say, organic and like in line with the belief and philosophy. But yeah, the eggs they came from the chickens right around the corner type thing. So we had these, so we had the hard-boiled eggs, and then we get into our grays. And I actually wish I should have grabbed them out, but so we had to wear the Shaolin grays. So those uniforms you guys see where it's like tied around the waist and the hands and the whole deal. That's what we wore. And I didn't have to shave my head. A lot of people did. But as foreigners, we weren't held to the same standards.
Okay.
And then we started with a run. And then after our run, depending on the day, we went into training. So Mondays, we did usually a lot. I think we used to do a lot of kicks. And so I know one of our days we had to do 1,000 kicks. So it was 1,000 kicks. Tuesdays was acrobatics. So we were practicing like our flips and things like that.
Wow.
We had days where we were doing boxing, Chinese style boxing. Then we had our forms, and the forms are the things most people know about, like the animal forms, like dragon, this and that. And the truth is you don't get to start there. A lot of newbies will show up and be like, I want to learn dragon form. It's like, no, you're going to learn.
Such an American thing, man.
It is.
Like, I saw it in the movies. I'm like, come on.
Exactly. I want to do monkey's form.
Yeah.
So it's not how it works. You got to do a lot of training. And Tai Chi is honestly, I learned such a passion for it, and how it was honestly, my first week was one of the hardest things I did. It was one of the hardest.
Really?
I was so blown away. I was like, come on, all week I've been doing all this crazy stuff and learning. I did some Wing Chun, and then we also did typical Shaolin Kung Fu. And so I was learning the Wing Chun moves, and I was like, it's tough. It has its thing. But Tai Chi, I was like breaking a sweat, and I'm like, how is this possible? Like, I'm moving so slow.
Yeah.
But it was that concentration. It was like holding your body back. It just blew me away. And so doing that, and then moving into form practice. Form practice I started with a form called Tongbei, which was just a several series of blocks, really, blocks and pulls. And then we would do training together. We did a lot of drills. And it was just varied throughout the week. And in between that, running around, if we were lucky, one of my highlights was getting to go train in the Pagoda Forest. So if you've ever seen that, where the monks of the past have been buried, that was pretty special. And that was, it was it, just usual day. But that would be the morning session. You'd come in, you'd have lunch, and then you'd have a little break and a rest, and then you go for your evening session. And then you would go for dinner, and then you could take Mandarin. You could start to learn calligraphy. There were different classes you could take, and then it was lights out by 9:30 if you lasted that long, because
you're probably so tired.
About 7 hours of physical training every day.
Yeah. What was the dinner action like? Was it the same thing?
No. Actually, we were very fortunate. So at the actual temple, the food was great. We had this wonderful lady. I don't remember her name. I don't know if I ever actually knew her name. But she's just a smiley, like little old lady, her and her husband in a kitchen that was probably the size of, I would say a European closet, not an American closet, but a European closet. She was cooking dinner in that, and we would have usually like sometimes even 4 to 5 dishes. And so there would be meatless dishes. There would be like chicken-based dishes. There would be usually chicken and pork. There wasn't a lot of beef or anything like that. Lots of green beans, lots of vegetables. There would be like the kind of like glass noodles, but also this weird like pie noodle looking thing. And just really that was really lots of meats and vegetables. Of course, you'd have rice. Occasionally we'd have some forbidden rice if we were lucky. That's like the big purple rice. We would also have these Chinese pancakes, which were made with like rice flour and green onions. And I forgot, we used to have those for breakfast for a while. Those were really fun.
Nice.
And sometimes some soups, but it was, some people would not maybe have the same fond memories, but I thought it was great. It was fresh.
Sounds good,
amazing.
actually.
I loved it. Lots of celery, which was a complaint for some people. They're like, too much celery and everything. But to me, it was like fresh vegetables, fresh meat. It was great. And we were also surrounded when the season came by apricot trees, which was really fun. Ooh. So we'd go and pick fresh apricots during the season.
Sounds pretty good. I don't know. Did you ever think to yourself, like, what have I gotten myself into when you're doing all the physical activities?
Yes. So day one, and I didn't tell the story fully chronologically, but like, so there was 2 day ones for me. The first day one was arriving in a town called Yantai, and Yantai was where my flight came in. They picked me up and they took me to a temple called Kunyu. And Kunyu was the temple that I was at before I could go to the Shaolin temple because it was too cold there. So there's no students able to be there to survive there. So we were all at Kunyu, and Kunyu is where I focused on Wing Chun. And to me, that was very much a Kung Fu school. It didn't have that temple vibe. So I walked into this building, and I also arrived at night. And so everyone was already in their equivalent of like dorm rooms.
Yeah.
And I just walk into this dark place in the middle of nowhere, into this weird square building. And I'm like, what the hell did I get myself into? What is this?
What am I doing? Yeah.
This didn't look like the brochure. Okay.
No, like, it looks great on the brochure. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. And it didn't have that whole like temple vibe. So I was just in this like kind of dorm-like building at first. And I didn't know what else was around me. And so I was like, this is not what I was expecting. And I was in this room by myself, which I was very happy about. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have my own room. And this was kind of a funny story. So I was 34 at the time. Anyone who's curious, I was 34 at the time. And I was told like a day or two later that I had a roommate coming. And if you guys don't know, my name's Tanya. And so they were like, well, her name's Tanya and she's 34. And I was like, well, no, that's me. That's here.
You. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, no, someone's coming. They said she's coming. And I was like, okay, like you guys clearly have your information back, which is great. That means I'm gonna have my room to myself. Well, then I come later, there's a backpack there, and she's like, are you Tanya? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, you? She's like, I'm Tanya. So are you 34? Like, yeah. So we have two Tanyas who are both 34, sharing a room together. She's from Costa Rica. I'm from America. We both speak Spanish. It was really funny. So we put a sign up for this at Tanya's room.
Yeah, that's right.
It was Tanya's room. And that was the first time I wasn't sure of how I liked it, what I felt about it. I didn't have this enthusiasm for Kung Fu. So at the time I just came in, I was like, I just really in my head was like, we'll see how long I last here. And I didn't know. Like, I'm getting out of here. You know, I didn't have this monk feel or any of that. Mm-hmm. And then the time came to go to the Shaolin, the official Shaolin temple. And what was weird is at that point, I was like, well, I kind of got used to this place. So now I'm like, you know, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
That's right.
So I'm like, okay. And so I get and take I actually took a side trip on my own to Beijing and did the whole Great Wall thing because I was like, I might be out of here, guys.
Yeah. I might not make it.
I don't know if this is gonna work.
Yeah.
So I flew to Beijing. I saw the temple. I saw the wall, and then I flew into Zhengzhou. And Zhengzhou, as I mentioned, is 2 hours from a smaller town called Dongfeng. Mm-hmm. And Dongfeng, once you get there, is a 30-minute ride into the front of the Shaolin temple. And so that was my first day was when I came in also at night. And that's when I woke up in the morning doing Tai Chi in the Shaolin temple. And I was like, oh, I made a good choice.
Yeah.
And that was a whole different vibe. I mean, you were surrounded by monks. You did have that. The Shifu was just impeccable in how he taught. And, you know, even though they let women train, there wasn't that same attention at the first school. And so it was kind of like, you're here because you can be, but we don't really care that you're here.
Yeah.
You're like, you know, so they were going to pay attention to the guys and what was going to be fun for them. And so Shifu Yanjun, who's my Shifu, he's a 34th generation warrior monk.
Wow.
And he entered the temple when he was 10, I believe. And he treated everyone with full respect. He spoke with me the same way that he spoke with any of the other students, and just really paid attention. He just felt like he cared about where you were going and what you're doing. And so I'm very happy to say actually that I'm still in touch with Shifu and the temple. They eventually actually became my client to help grow their foreigner program.
Funny
and I am now the head business administrator for the Shaolin temple, to not only help with their business direction, but also with the graduates who are going on to teach and train others. So that's a fun fact, full circle.
That's incredible.
I do. I talk to them on a regular basis. So But he's just an incredible person. And if you ever check he has an Instagram, guys. So Shifu,
So strange.
Shifu Yan Jun, I know.
So strange.
But he's on there. He was, I think they even featured one of his videos on like the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah.
Because he did the like quick power fist thing,
Oh,
which
okay,
is the
yeah.
1-inch punch type thing. But yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. It was an incredible push. I did, for those of you following along, I did eventually fall in love with Kung Fu. You know, awesome. I thought I was there really for this kind of, I'm just going to meditate and do all that. And I think it finally hit me, the course that Kung Fu plays in that, you know, this concentration that the only person you can become better than is yourself. And you're constantly competing against to do better what you did 2 minutes ago or what you did yesterday. And there's just the repetition. You would think, oh my God, it's going to get so boring. I'm doing the same move, but you just start to notice every tiny little nuance of that one fist forward, that one hand forward, until you're seeing all the tiny little micro improvements and you see that growth. And then you just start to apply that to all the other places in life. You start to go like, how to look at it. And it just becomes that meditative thing. And I feel like to a certain degree, we've all heard that, we've all heard, oh, Kung Fu is not what you think. But it's not till you're really doing it and you experience it, that I think you can fully get it, And so I wasn't there as an enthusiast. I wasn't there for Kung Fu, and it absolutely changed my life. And not only did it change my life, guys, but I met my now husband there. So
that's amazing.
My husband was also training there at the same time.
Wow.
And and he's from Czech Republic, which is now why I live in Czech Republic.
Yeah. I mean, what a deal. Like, you got a lot out of it, literally.
I really did. It was an amazing experience. Yeah.
Wow. Did you get in really good physical condition did you feel like, man,
yes.
my fitness improved a lot?
Absolutely. I was never great at running. And so really being pushed for that was something that was, partially at the same time, I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But seeing myself improve there, what was interesting too, is that I'm very, very flexible. And so a lot of people are already like, wow, like she can do the split, she can do this. And so a lot of these kind of fancy moves, high kicks, I could do no problem. And that didn't matter to Shifu because he could see through that. He was like, yeah, you can throw your leg up in the air, but where's the power?
Yeah.
And so starting to actually be able to see the difference and bring power into my kicks was a huge improvement that I never thought of. And then even pushing my stretching further. So so maybe, I don't know if you share photos or anything, but I could share a photo where I used to have I could put my foot on the back of my head, no problem.
Wow.
And that was fine. But Shifu was like, okay, so now get to the top of your head. So I was like, okay. So I started training to get to the top of my head. So I'm like, Shifu, look. And he's like, okay, now get to your forehead. So now I'm putting it to my forehead. And I'm like, surely I've arrived, right? There's no much further. He's like, now to your nose. So I got the back of it all the way to my nose. So I'm like, okay, can we really go any further? He's like, now to your mouth. So the furthest I got, I literally put my foot in my mouth, guys, from the back of my head. So there's a picture there of me training with one of my counterparts with my foot.
You got to see that picture. Definitely got to see that picture. It's insane.
Yeah. So that really pushed even my stretching, the power that I had within my flexibility, not just being flexible and limber, but really bringing the power into it. The mindset as well. I remember going up on Fridays, as I mentioned before, we had to run 6 times up and down the mountain, and just getting to that point where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't feel like doing this. And so 2 things would happen. One would be, okay, I'm just going to go up once today. And I'm going to be done. And so I'd be going up the stairs. It's ongoing. It's a very long, and there's lots of gaps in between those stairs. So I talk about the stairs, but it's like a trail and you're running it. And so I'm going through this gap, and on the way up, I'm like, I'm so glad that this is my last one. It's my only one. And then you start to run down the stairs. And then you're like, that wasn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do one more.
Yep.
So you do one more. Next thing you know, you've done the whole 6, you know, you're like, it just is such this mindset.
Of course.
And the other thing that happened was, you know, I'm in these Shaolin grays. I'm in this Shaolin uniform and I'm running up these stairs, and there's so much history around me, literally at every corner, and every person running past me, and these children who are training and clearly in better shape than I am, and all of these people. And I would get to this point where it was like, I represent Shaolin. This is Shaolin. I have to keep going. I'm Shaolin. And like, that was one of the terms that we had, that we used to yell out, was chayo. And chayo is power. They also use it meaning to get gas when they're getting their car. It's chayo. But the original is more power. Okay. And so that was what you would yell out with like your counterparts, like chayo. And so you just be in that, you're like, it's chayo. I got to have more power. And I'm Shaolin. So there are times I remember just holding that in my mind. Like I'm representing Shaolin. I am the warrior monk. I need to push. I can push because that's who I am right now. And so that was a real powerful thing as well in that training and physical fitness.
It sounded like you were tested, you know, like that's an important concept. Like a lot of people, they're not tested on a regular basis. You know, they're like, you kind of just go through life and, you know, things happen, bad things happen, good things happen, but, you know, to like really be tested, like mentally and physically on a regular basis, I think more people, that needs to happen. Like I was a collegiate track and field athlete. So like running up 200, 300 meter hills, did it all the time. Yeah. And being in pain regularly, I mean, it like hardens you, like your physical training. You're like, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to keep going. When you were telling that story about the hill, I was like, oh my gosh, I have like an exact similar story. How's that? Like you just get up to the top, you see the really long hill going down. And like, I got 10 more of these. Right. You're like, right. And you just keep going. You just keep going. You just keep moving. And I wanted to ask those, like, was somebody like coaching you or pushing you during that time? Or is it just kind of like you're expected to do it, or you could just stop whenever you want? Was there any supervision for that?
Yeah, I mean, we had our main Shifu who was there, and that was really it. There was a couple of, sometimes there would be additional Shifus that would help us during like our breakouts, but it was really our own team and counterpart of people who we were training with, who were just like, come on, like you got this, keep going, you got to do it. Even just seeing them flourish, you just kind of want to like keep up with that. And we just become such this tiny like unit that are growing together. And then, you know, as new students would come, we'd kind of become the old students. And so there was this like camaraderie amongst the old students to be there, like, we got to show them what we can do and make it happen. But it was interesting because a lot of it was really, it came from within. It was like, I want to do better. I want to do more. It wasn't like just showing up, you know, you wanted to train, you were training 7 hours a day, and then you would want to train on your off time to get better. Yeah. You know, like you wanted to, you're like, I gotta land this stick move. I gotta land this kick. I gotta land this thing. And no one actually did. It wasn't like there was anything. We didn't have a competition coming up.
Yeah, right.
It was just this self thing of like, I know I can get this. I know I can do this. And then there was also the thing that, you know, you didn't get to move into your next form until you got that one down. Yeah. So sometimes you're like, there might have been a thing where like, I'm just tired of this form. I want to do the next cool one. And so I remember, for me, getting to a point where I was doing, even in Tai Chi, we had the same thing. So you'd move from your 24 step into, eventually you can move into Tai Chi spear. So I learned Tai Chi spear, and then eventually I was learning to Tai Chi sword, and then learning this Tai Chi kind of power burst type that was there, which was very difficult. And then moving away from my basic forms and then moving into, which very few people got to do, which was into animal forms. And that's like one of the big, that's the one everyone wants to do. Yeah. And so I remember getting to the point where I was like, oh my God, like my last form that I practiced there was dragon form, which is was a pretty difficult form. And just like, it was this weird sense of accomplishment of your own self, of like, oh my gosh, I'm doing dragon form now. Like literally a year before that meant nothing to me. And here I was like, I'm doing dragon form. Like,
you're so like, I'm not into Kung Fu. I'm not, you know, I'm like,
not into Kung Fu. Yeah.
Not here for this. I'm trying to retreat from me.
I'm trying to find myself, and I'm like, dragon form.
You thought you were doing like Eat, Pray, Love or something. You're like, oh yeah, I'm Julia Roberts, man. You know, like,
exactly. And that was the thing, right? Like you were saying, we don't push ourselves. And there were so many elements
Yeah.
of that was out of place, going into China alone, which wasn't a place I was that thrilled to go into. Not only going to China, but I wasn't in Shanghai. I wasn't in towns where people
Yeah.
speak English. I was in very rural spaces. I was in, very strange, quarters and whatnot, and traveling on my own, all of those things that people are already so worried about.
Right.
But these are the absolute life-changing experiences that make you who you are, that can change the very trajectory of your life, of your business, of anything. And I see it, like it could be so scary to give everything up. And I remember when I was leaving, we're getting ready to leave, I had to call and cancel all my utilities and stuff. And if anyone, especially in the US, if you've ever canceled your cable, the first thing they usually ask is, well, where are you moving to?
Right.
Because they might service that area.
Exactly right.
And so or their sister company does or something. So she's like, well, where are you moving to? I was like, I am moving to China. She was like, oh, okay.
Well, see you later.
We don't service there, right? And so she's like, well, may I ask, if you don't mind, may I ask, like, what brings you there? Is it work?
Yeah.
And that's usually what most people assume, like, oh, she's going, international, must be for work. And I said, I am leaving to study Kung Fu at the Shaolin Temple for a year. And she was just like, wow, okay. And of course, and here it is, guys, remember, this is my cable lady, right? So she's like, she started asking me, she's like, why are you like Kung Fu? Is that what you're into? I was like, no, not at all. I am just going to do it. And I kind of told a little bit about my story. I was like, look, life is too short. I've learned that early on, and the opportunity came, and it seems crazy and insane, and I'm just saying yes. And she goes, well, oh my gosh, like that's so inspiring. Like I wish I could do something like that. I want to do something like that. She's like, it makes me think there's just, I wanted to start a business, and I keep putting off. And she's, I just don't know when the right time is. And I was like, it's not the right time for me, right? To go to China. I said, to just doing it. And so I told her, I go, let me ask you this. If you come in tomorrow, and whoever's in charge of this cable company, they royally screwed up, right? There's nothing you could have done about it. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. They royally screwed up. They show up and they're like, sorry, you're a great employee, but everyone's laid off. Doors are closing. You're out. Are you going to walk out the door, go sit in the gutter and be like, well, I guess that's it. There's nothing else to do in life now.
Sorry.
Or I said, what are you going to? She's like, well, I'd have to figure it out. I was like, exactly.
That's exactly right.
So do you want to figure it out when somebody puts it on your plate, or do you want to do it on your terms?
That's true.
Right?
Right. You never think about it that way, because you're always doing it at like reactionary, like, oh, something happened, now I got to figure it out, versus like, let me control this, or in some level, like, let me make the decision.
Yes. Let me know everything's going to be okay, and set it all out and put it into motion, because you think you in whatever you're doing that there's some level of security.
Yeah.
Let's, guys, pandemic, hello, like it didn't matter what level of security that we had. Things can change at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And so how much more power and joy can we have when we take the leap on our own, and I'm not saying be reckless and all those things, but imagine if you were like, I'm just going to take the leap. You might have had a month or two to maybe put some things in place, as opposed to when you just got that pink slip and you were out the door. So, and so so I might have convinced, to this day, I'm not sure.
Was she like, think about it? Did she really think about it?
She was. Yeah. She was like, oh my God, I'm going to go talk to my husband tonight. Like, she was really inspired. And to this day, I wonder what happened to cable lady, where she might have
changed her life, man.
I had a 40-minute call. I remember that.
That's crazy.
I remember telling, because I think I was at the office, and I'm like, oh, just be a couple minutes. I just got to cancel a cable. And I was like, they're coming in. I was like, I'm still on the phone. I'm still on
this lady. I'm trying to change her life.
I just gotta. So 40-minute call with my cable lady to hopefully inspire her. But that, that's what it comes down to. Like, I think when I've told this story, obviously many times in different podcasts and different purposes for that. But a lot of people will hear the story and they go, oh, well, she had this, or she was independently wealthy. She got to do it. And That wasn't the case, guys. Like I came from, poverty. I pulled myself up. I got into some good jobs and things, but I still worked in a startup kind of situation. There wasn't the security. There wasn't all of those things. And I gave a lot of that up and didn't really know what was going to happen when I came back. And I still did it. And as a matter of fact, when I did come back, which was relatively short-lived because then I kept traveling. But when I did eventually come back, my partner, my business partner and mentor, who was like family to me, I trusted with everything, ended up taking all the money from our company and disappeared into Southeast Asia.
Oh my goodness.
And I found myself 8 months pregnant and out of money. And a lot of people, weird enough, don't want to hire someone who's 8 months pregnant. And so, you think like, oh my gosh, I should have stayed, or I should have done this. Like what?
Yeah.
And you know what happened? I figured it out.
You figured it out.
I figured it out. And was it fun? No, but now, you know what happened from that? I was so inspired through, like, I figured it out. I had to get money. I had to do something. And after going through another miserable experience with a company I did not like working with and all this stuff, I had my son, and that alone was like, we're not doing this anymore. So that's when we up and left to Europe. And then we ended up living in Thailand, and I ended up living in Vietnam for a while.
Crazy.
And through there, I found clients through there. And now I've had a global network of clients because I chose to say, yes, I chose to say, this is the life I want. And I'm going to figure out how to put everything else into that. Instead of, this is the life I have, let me figure out how to create the life I want with that.
Yeah, that's so right. I mean, I read this stuff resonates with me so much. I mean, like I've traveled and moved a lot in my life. And I think when you do it a lot, you kind of expect that it's going to work out. You're like, well, yeah, I've done this before. I've left and moved away and done all these things. The real heartbreak is when it just gets thrown to you. And you're like, oh, now you have to leave. Sorry. And then it's just like, it's just a hurricane at that point.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people, like, if we can make these choices, if we can pull through, if we can find the depths of our strength in trauma and like the despair, how much more strength and resilience do we have in our moments of happiness and joy to make these decisions? Like if we're in our worst case scenario and we can pull it out, imagine what we can do when we're like feeling pretty darn good about life.
Yeah.
So, it's like, we don't have to wait for that to push us. We can actually choose. And the problem I see is that we're not often enough, like you were talking about, not often enough are we pushed to like see our best. Yeah. And also not often are we pushed to step and go, what do I actually want my life to look like? We're asked what we want to be when we grow up. Yeah. We're not asked who we want to be when we grow up. We're not asked what life looks like. And then to actually answer that, the answer isn't good, guys. Good doesn't mean anything. What does good look like?
Yeah. What does that look like?
And then start to build. And then once you have this like on a clear picture, you can start to pull the pieces. Our brain, I have a degree in applied neuroscience. And so our brain will find what we tell it to look for. And so if we just don't have the vision, if we don't have anything there, then it's only going to continue to confirm what we already have. But if you say, I want a life where I can travel, or I want a life where I can make this amount, or I want to spend more time with my family, and it's a clear vision, what more means, 20 minutes more, 2 hours more, your brain will start to look for those ways for you to go, did you notice that? That could be a way that you could travel, or that could be a way where you could spend more time. But without that vision, what your life is right now is already what you're committed to.
Yeah, that's true. There. It's it's funny, like reframing the question. It's almost, you can say like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or like, what kind of person do you want to be when you grow up? Like, how do you want to affect the world? And I think those are deeper questions about the self that we don't talk to kids about. We don't talk to teenagers about, and young adults. Like, how do you want to be perceived in the world? And how do you want to move on a regular basis? How do you want people to understand you in your life? And it's just, we don't do that stuff. And like you said, how do you want to live? What do you want to do? You want to travel a lot? Okay, you got to have a framework for that. What type of job do you want to do? How do you want to accomplish that?
How much travel? Because then you start to go, okay, well then what kind of job allows me this? Is it I want to travel a month at a time and come back to home base, or do you want a digital nomad it? What does that look like? What does that mean? But whether it's viable or not is not really the question. It's about the clarity of what it is, because the rest will come together. The rest you'll be able to figure out. And I love that you said about the who do you want to be, because it's something we do these monthly planning sessions every month, right? That's why they're monthly planning sessions. And the idea there is like, we do this grandiose thing in January of like, new year, new me, and all this nonsense. We start these New Year's resolutions, which tend to last at max 60 days if you're really on top of it. I think the numbers are something like 92% of resolutions are done within the first 60 days, and only 7% actually, or 8% make it to the end of the year. And so every month, instead, we look at what our new goals are for the next 30 days and start looking at these micro goals and these micro visions instead of this big vision, because it's easy to pivot and change in these small moments than it is when you're looking at like this 3-year goal. And it's great to have those, but come back to like, what happened in the last 30 days that I can change or adjust? And one of the questions that we go through every month is, who do you want to be next month? Who do you want to be in the next 30 days? How do you want to show up in the world in the next 30 days? Because when you say in the world, it sounds like grandiose and it's some big personality you're trying to attain to. But if you're like, you know what, for the next 30 days, I want to be the kind of person who doesn't scream in traffic, right? Like I'm from California, right? So that's that's a common thing. I want to be the person that's screaming. I want to be, calmer. I want to be this. And how does that, and so one of the things we ask, well, how does that person behave? Well, they would do this. What actions do they take? Well, that person might get up early, or maybe that person sleeps better. Maybe the person does. So then our micro goal becomes that person. And how do we step into that person for the next 30 days? That's it. Next 30 days. And step into who we really want to become and who we want to be. And ask that on a regular basis, because that's what matters.
It is what matters.
That's what comes up. It's, like the Maya Angelou quote, people remember how you made them feel, not what you do. And in the end, your life is a matter of how you feel and how you show up in the world, not all your to-do lists, not all the stuff you checked off. So
it comes back to the to-do list. It's full circle. It's full circle. Right? You were doing the to-do list. You were checking things off, but that's not what mattered the most.
No, that's not. And that's what and how we got in the subject is like, it was that afforded me, quote unquote, to take these trips, to take these chances, to say yes to these things. So don't wait for that death in your family. Don't wait for that tragedy to be the thing, because that's what it took to shake me up. And thankfully it shook me up at 25. But not everyone has that choice, or option. And do we want to wait for that option? Like, hopefully some tragedy will hit me at 50 to wake me up. Like, no, do it now, because we do only have one chance. Tomorrow isn't promised. And, a great life is really just a series of well-lived days. And so today is the day that you make those choices. Today is the day that you spend the time that you wish you had with family, that you go and play the piano because that's what you've been wanting to do. Today is the day that you do that stuff now. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Clearly. Tanya, that was full circle. That's a great way to end it, I think. Your passion, your desire, your excitement, I think it shines through, and a lot of great lessons. I think we often we see a movie and something tragic happens in the movie, and this person turns their life around. They become this, and it's the message also, you don't have to wait for that tragedy to occur. For you to do something, and I think we're so reactive in our life, but we can be proactive and make that change. And sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to get up, you're laying on the couch, just get up, just get up and start moving. Who knows what's going to happen? Just start doing it.
Yes. Imperfect action. Just do it. And you get to design your life. It doesn't matter anything you've come from. Anywhere you're at, anywhere you're starting from, you get to design it. You get to choose, and we all have that power. So, we don't have control. And that's the one thing I can leave this with too, is that a lot of us will look at our circumstances and go, well, my boss this, or this, that, or the kids, or that, and I can't control this. You're right. You don't have control, but we have power. We have power to make the decisions within that. We have power to take a moment to look at our vision. We have power to say, this is what I'm going to do, regardless of what else is going on around you. And so remember that when you feel out of control, you're right. Maybe it's not, I can't control the pandemic, but I have power within it. of how I'm
Yeah.
going to show up, of how I'm going to be and what I'm going to choose to live within that. So remember, you have power.
You have power. Well said. Well said. Tanya, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time, and this is
Yeah.
powerful. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's been so much fun to relive my Kung Fu days.
I know,
and share
it's amazing stuff.
some
Wow,
stuff.
incredible. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time. We'll be in touch.
Absolutely.